Today I'm talking about a lens which I've used a lot recently. It's the Sigma 18-50mm f2.8 zoom. Now this is both smaller, lighter and cheaper than the Fujifilm counterpart, the 16-55 f2.8. I've been using this 18-50 for about 2 years at this point, and there's really something to be said about versatility when it comes to photography. Normally when it comes to zoom lenses, there are pretty big trade-offs for the size and versatility you get with a zoom lens like this. But in the case of the Sigma 18-50, I feel like the positives outweigh the trade-offs. Now, there are a couple things I don't like about this lens, and I will discuss them further in this review, but for the most part, I really feel the value and the versatility you get with this 18-50 really make it a great option for pretty much any type of photography, and especially if you're traveling. Recently, both on my trips to Japan and to New York, this was the lens I used the most. And it was especially helpful in New York, where I went during a heat wave. It was about 40 degrees Celsius, and the last thing I wanted to do is carry around extra bags and extra lenses on me. So I just headed out with the X-T5 with this 18-50 in front, and that was good enough for the whole trip. Quickly, before getting deeper into this review, all the photos you see in this episode were edited using my preset pack. I have a link to that in the description below. And if you haven't already, remember to hit the subscribe and thumbs up button. It really helps the channel and makes a world of difference. You can pick up this Sigma 18-50 for about 450 to 500 pounds new at the moment. Now this is pretty cheap when you compare it to Fujifilm's 16-50, which comes in at around £1,000. Now I've used both the Fujifilm 16-55 and Sigma 18-50 for a couple of years at this point, and towards the end of this episode I will briefly discuss and compare the two lenses. But for the most part, I think the value is in the Sigma. I'd say this is a lens which doesn't really inspire me to pick the camera up and shoot, but on the flip side, you're getting a constant f2 aperture, a lens which is very lightweight and very small for its focal range, and when you compare it to the Fujifilm 16-55, it's actually pretty incredible how much they've packed into a lens this small. Now I know these things aren't important in terms of the quality of images you will capture, but I do believe that having gear which inspires you to shoot with it makes you more likely to use it and more likely to go out and shoot. Both the focus ring and the zoom ring again don't feel great. Also, because the lens is mostly plastic and rubber, it scuffs up and marks up pretty quickly. Now it's not to say it's not durable, because I put this lens through some pretty harsh conditions under some heavy rainfall, and while it's not officially weather sealed, I haven't run into any issues so far. So on the whole, it is a durable lens. It doesn't feel great in the hand and it doesn't look great, but on the flip side, it's tiny and it's lightweight. Now, when you compare this to the Fujifilm 16-55, this Sigma is about half the size and half the weight. And yes, the Fujifilm's image quality is slightly higher. I will get into this in a bit more detail shortly, but I don't think the Sigma is that far behind. Another advantage of this lens being so small is the filter size is also small, and what that means is any filters you buy, ND filters and so on, will be cheaper because they're going to be smaller. This 18-50 does not have stabilization, nor does the 16-55 Fujifilm. To be honest, when I've been using this with my Fujifilm X-T5 and X-T4, both of those camera bodies have in-body stabilization. I haven't really felt the need to have a lens with stabilization as well. not going to start taking pictures of brick walls and measuring sharpness, but from just looking at the photos I've taken with this lens and compared to the ones I get with my Fuji primes or even the 16-55 Fuji zoom lens, I'd say the Fujifilm lenses have slightly better image quality, contrast and colors, but the Sigma isn't that far behind, and to be honest, most of those differences you can make up in post. When shooting wide open at f2.8, the images can be slightly soft. It does sharpen up when you go f5.6 and above, but when you compare this to the 16-55 Fuji, that's a bit more consistent across the entire aperture range. I feel like the versatility of this 18-50 outweighs the slight quality drop you get compared to primes or Fujifilm's own zoom lenses. Finally, and this is a feature I've not really seen spoken much about when it comes to reviews of this 18-50, is how close it can focus. Now when you're shooting at 18mm, you can pretty much bring your subject right up against the lens and it will still focus. This means you can capture really interesting, almost macro-like photos and video, and is another example of just how versatile this 18-50 is. When it comes to night photography, obviously at f2.8 this isn't the ideal lens. I've still managed to capture pretty good photos at night with it. It kind of depends where you're shooting. If you're shooting at night in a place which is well lit, you can still capture pretty good shots with this lens. But if you are going into darker locations, you are going to want a faster prime lens, something around the f1.4, f1.8 range. Honestly, when it comes to image quality, people really obsess about this stuff, but it's not as important as people make out. Also, I like to make my images softer, so I'm either adding diffusion filters or doing that in post. As for the autofocusing with this 18-50, I found it to be surprisingly good. Honestly, I haven't really felt it to be any slower than Fujifilm's own lenses. With that said, I don't use continuous autofocusing that often. I have seen and read that the tracking on this lens isn't as good as Fujifilm's own lenses, and that makes sense, but for the type of photography I'm doing, it's more than fast enough and it's more than accurate enough. As for video with this lens, I've really enjoyed using this on my X-T5, where I'm constantly switching between taking photos and recording video. I've been really happy with the video I've been recording with this 18-50. I don't feel like there's a big drop off between this and the 16-55, and I'll be hard pressed to spot any differences. Now when it comes to autofocusing with video, this is an area where I feel like the 16-55 Fuji does a much better job. With the 16-55, if you focus on your subject and then zoom in, it does a really good job at maintaining focus. Whereas with this lens, if I was to do exactly the same thing, it often loses focus and takes a couple of seconds to refocus. So to wrap this episode up, I'd say that the Sigma 18-50 is a jack of all trades but master of none. And what I mean by that is, it's not the greatest image quality, and there are better lenses when it comes to straight up image quality, be it the Fujifilm primes and Fujifilm zooms, but the amount you get in a package this small and light, and for the price it is, I feel like it's a no-brainer for most photographers, especially those of you who travel a lot. Now, granted, it's very plasticky, it doesn't look great, but I've managed to capture some of my favorite photos this year with this lens, and I will be using it for the foreseeable future as well. If you have any questions about the 18-50, drop them in the comments below and I will try my best to get back to you. A huge thanks for watching this episode. Please remember to hit the thumbs up and to subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.